The announcement reached Earth on a Tuesday. On screens across the planet, the news flashed with urgency. The Galactic Council was breaking apart. For 3,000 years, this alliance of nearly 300 alien species had kept the stars peaceful. Now it was ending. Admiral James Walker stood on the command deck of Earth's orbital headquarters. His weathered face showed no surprise as he watched the holographic display. Reports streamed in from across the galaxy. The Draxian Empire had withdrawn first, taking their crystalline ships and leaving empty seats in the council chambers. The Mavolians followed hours later, their hive mind making decisions faster than most species could form opinions. 6 other major powers announced their departures before Earth's day had ended. "Look at them all," said Lieutenant Gray, a young officer with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. She pointed to the incoming messages flooding their systems. "Every non-human world is calling emergency meetings." Walker nodded slowly. "Of course they are. Most of these species haven't seen real fighting in thousands of years." Around them, human officers worked with calm efficiency. No one rushed. No one showed panic. Compared to the frantic communications from alien allies, the difference was striking. "Sir," called a communications specialist, "the Tellarian ambassador requests immediate counsel with Earth's leadership. They're asking about our defense plans." Walker almost smiled. "Tell them we'll meet tomorrow. Some things can't be rushed." Later that evening, Walker sat alone in his office overlooking the Earth. Blue oceans and swirling clouds looked peaceful from space. Unlike the alien diplomats who had been calling all day, he felt no fear about what was coming. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council only 400 years ago. While most species had grown up under the Council's protection, humans had developed alone, fighting their own battles. He opened his personal tablet and reviewed the defense protocols that Earth had maintained even during centuries of galactic peace. Unlike their alien friends, humans had never fully trusted that peace would last forever. They had prepared, quietly and steadily. A soft knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. "Enter," Walker called. Captain Rodriguez stepped inside, holding fresh reports. "Sir, we're tracking military movements in the Orion sector. The Draxians are already pushing into Mavolian space." "So it begins," Walker said. "And our status?" "All human colonies are implementing Defense Protocol 3. Fleet movements are underway. We'll be ready within 48 hours." Walker nodded with approval. "And our alien allies?" Rodriguez's expression darkened. "Most haven't updated their military systems in centuries. The Tellarians can't even find their defense manuals. The Loranians have weapons but haven't trained crews to use them." "Not surprising," Walker said. "When you live in peace for 3,000 years, you forget how to fight. But humanity remembers." He stood and looked back at the view of Earth. Human history was filled with wars, conflicts, and struggles for survival. While the rest of the galaxy had enjoyed their long peace, humans had continued to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. "Send word to all commands," Walker ordered. "We're not just protecting human worlds. Establish safe corridors for refugee ships. Any non-combatant vessel requesting sanctuary is to be given protection." "That will spread our forces thin, sir," Rodriguez pointed out. Walker's eyes hardened. "Humanity didn't come to the stars to hide when things got difficult. We came to make a difference." As night fell over Earth Command, the rest of the galaxy descended into chaos. But in human space, there was only purpose and preparation. The peace had ended, but humans weren't worried. They were ready. The war room of Earth Central Command buzzed with activity. Unlike the elaborate meeting halls of their alien allies, this was a simple, practical space. Metal walls, functional displays, and sturdy furniture. Everything built for purpose rather than beauty. Admiral Walker stood at the main table, surrounded by his senior staff and a dozen alien diplomats who had arrived seeking guidance. The visitors looked out of place among the humans, some with blue skin, others with extra limbs or eyes that blinked sideways. All of them showed signs of stress. "You must understand our position," Walker explained, his voice calm but firm. Humanity fought itself for most of its history. We nearly wiped ourselves out several times before we reached the stars. He tapped the table controls, bringing up images of ancient human wars. Scenes from World War I, the water conflicts, and the Mars independence showed in stark detail. What terrifies your species we've already faced, he continued. While the galaxy enjoyed 3,000 years of peace, Earth had barely known 50 years without some form of armed conflict when we first met aliens. The Tellarian ambassador stepped forward. His blue skin glistened with nervous sweat. But Admiral, this is different. No species can be truly prepared for galactic war. The scale alone. Scale changes tactics, not principles, interrupted General Marcus Thompson. The old general was the oldest human in the room, his face lined with the marks of 100 battles. When I was a young man fighting in the Jupiter moons, we were outgunned 5-1. We still won. Thompson picked up a small object from the table, an old metal multi-tool with various blades and attachments. Have you ever seen a Swiss Army knife, Ambassador? The Tellarian looked confused. I don't understand the relevance. This tool represents humanity, Thompson explained. We don't specialize like your people do. The Tellarians are the greatest diplomats in the galaxy. The Mavolians are the best scientists. But what happens when diplomacy fails? What happens when science needs to be applied to defense? He opened several of the tool's attachments. Humans adapt. While you were perfecting peace, we were practicing for everything else. On the main screens, reports showed human colonies shifting to defensive positions. Military vessels moved with precision, creating safe zones and patrol routes. Civilian ships converted to transport and medical roles without confusion. A small green-skinned diplomat spoke up. How can your people be so calm? The galaxy is falling apart. Walker smiled slightly. Because we never believed it would last forever. Peace is not the natural state of intelligent life. Peace is something you build and maintain. Lieutenant Gray entered the room with fresh intelligence reports. Sir, we've confirmed Draxian forces have taken the Palladian system. 3 billion refugees are moving toward the nearest safe zones. Are our corridors ready? Walker asked. Yes, sir. First refugee ships are already under human escort. The alien diplomats watched this exchange with growing understanding. While their worlds had fallen into panic at the first signs of conflict, humans had immediately established clear plans and begun implementing them. We came late to your galactic community, Walker said to the gathered aliens. Only 400 years compared to your thousands. You saw us as newcomers, perhaps even primitive. But now you understand what humanity brings to the stars. He expanded the holographic display to show the galaxy. A web of protected routes appeared, all anchored on human worlds. We don't fear this war, Walker said firmly. We've been preparing for it since before we met you, not because we wanted conflict, but because we understood its inevitability. As the meeting continued, the alien diplomats began to realize a surprising truth. The youngest major species in the galaxy might be the one best equipped to guide them all through the darkness ahead. 1 month after the Council's collapse, real war erupted across the Orion Arm. The Draxians, insect-like and calculating, seized 3 star systems from their ancient rivals. Their ships, dormant for millennia, but perfectly maintained, cut through the unprepared defenses of frontier worlds. Refugee ships fled toward the only safe place they knew, human space. Thousands of vessels, packed with frightened civilians of dozens of species, followed emergency beacons to corridors protected by Earth's Navy. Captain Anna Reed stood on the bridge of the UEN Defiant, watching her tactical display as her battle group moved to intercept a Draxian hunter squadron. The enemy ships were pursuing a cluster of civilian transports desperately trying to reach safety. Time to intercept, Reed asked, her voice steady. 3 minutes, Captain, responded her navigator. Weapons are hot and shields at full strength. The bridge crew worked with focused precision. None showed fear, though they were outnumbered. The 5 human ships were facing 8 Draxian vessels, each larger and better armed. "They're scanning us," reported the sensor officer. "They've detected our approach." Reed nodded. "Good. Let's have a conversation before this gets messy. Open a channel." The main screen flickered, then showed the interior of the Draxian command ship. Their commander was a massive insectoid, his exoskeleton gleaming black under harsh lights. His mandibles clicked rapidly in what humans had learned was amusement. "Human vessels," the Draxian said, his translator making his clicks into words. "This is not your concern. These are matters between ancient powers." Reed smiled thinly. "I'm Captain Anna Reed of the United Earth Navy. You're pursuing civilian ships in what we've designated as a safe passage corridor." "Designation by humans means nothing," the Draxian responded. "These refugees flee from legitimate conquest. They are our prizes. They're people seeking safety," Reed countered. "Withdraw your vessels immediately." The Draxian's compound eyes flashed with light. "You cannot hope to." Reed cut the transmission with a quick hand gesture. "Tactical. Execute Maneuver Theta. Communications. Alert the refugee ships to alter course along our projected safety route." What happened next would later be studied in alien war colleges across the galaxy. The 5 human ships split into a perfect encirclement pattern, each taking position to create overlapping fields of fire. Before the Draxians could react, the human vessels fired precise shots, not at the Draxian ships themselves, but at the space around them. Remote mines, deployed earlier along the corridor and invisible until activated, created a barrier of energy that disrupted the Draxian sensors and weapons targeting. "They're trying to regroup," reported the tactical officer. "Fire warning shots across their bow," Reed ordered. "Let's remind them we're serious." The Defiant's main guns sent bright pulses of energy just meters from the lead Draxian vessel. The message was clear. The next shots wouldn't miss. The sensor officer looked up in surprise. "Captain, they're retreating." Reed watched as the Draxian ships turned away, abandoning their pursuit. They hadn't expected real resistance, and certainly hadn't expected to find humans who knew exactly how to fight. After the Draxians disappeared from their sensors, Reed ordered her ships to escort the refugee vessels to the nearest human outpost. "Why did they run?" asked a young officer. "Their ships outgunned ours." Reed's experienced eyes studied the tactical replay. "Because we didn't fight like they expected." The Draxians remember wars from 3,000 years ago. They have ancient tactics and predictable moves. She pointed to their own ship's positions. "We've been developing new strategies for centuries. They'd been maintaining old ones." As the battle group moved deeper into the corridor with their grateful refugees, word of the encounter spread quickly through both human and alien networks. The message was clear. Humans weren't just offering safe passage. They were willing and able to defend it. The galaxy was beginning to understand that the youngest major species might be its best hope for survival. 3 months into the galactic conflict, military leaders from Earth's allied worlds gathered in the underground war center beneath New Geneva. The room was packed with humans and aliens alike, all focused on the central holographic display showing the latest battle data. Dr. Thomas Rivera, head of Earth's Defense Research Division, stood before them. He was a small man with quick hands and quicker eyes, dressed in simple clothes that contrasted with the elaborate uniforms of the alien officers. "They're all fighting with 3,000-year-old tactics," Rivera explained, manipulating the display to show recent combat footage. "That's their fundamental weakness." The hologram zoomed in on a Draxian battle formation, a perfect geometric arrangement of warships that hadn't changed in millennia. "Look at this precision," Rivera continued. "It's textbook. Literally textbook. We found this exact formation in historical archives from before the long peace." General Kate Patel, commander of Earth's expeditionary forces, stepped forward. Her dark skin was marked with the small scars of someone who had seen real combat. "Our analysis shows something remarkable," she said, bringing up statistical charts. "On paper, Our ships are outgunned by most combatants. The Drexian dreadnoughts carry twice the firepower of our heaviest vessels, yet our victory ratio is nearly 9-1. Why? A Talarian admiral raised a blue-skinned hand. Your tactics. Partly, Patel nodded. But more importantly, we never stopped improving our technology. While the galaxy maintained peace, military innovation essentially stopped. Most species can maintain their ancestors' weapons perfectly, but they've forgotten how to create new ones. Rivera tapped his control pad, and the display shifted to show the interior of a massive engineering bay. Hundreds of humans worked alongside refugee scientists from a dozen worlds. Together, they were building something new. This is Innovation Bay 7, Rivera said with pride. We've paired our engineers with the greatest theoretical minds from your worlds. During your 3,000 years of peace, your scientists developed amazing theories, but rarely built practical applications. 3 weeks ago, Patel added, the Mavolian physicist Dr. Elzer published a paper on theoretical shield harmonics. Yesterday, we installed the first working prototype on a frontline vessel. A murmur ran through the alien contingent. One of them, a crystal-based life form that moved on hovering technology, glided forward. This is impossible, the crystalline being said, its voice translating through a small device. From theory to application should take years of testing. Rivera smiled. Not when you've spent centuries practicing rapid deployment. Humans have always needed to adapt quickly to survive. In the back of the room, Admiral Walker watched with quiet satisfaction. He stepped forward only when Rivera had finished explaining the new technologies being developed. What Dr. Rivera hasn't mentioned, Walker said, is that we're sharing everything we create. Every innovation, every new weapon, every defense system, they're all being distributed to allied worlds. The alien officers looked at each other in surprise. Most species guarded their military secrets jealously. We're not fighting this war alone, Walker continued. We're teaching you to fight it alongside us. He expanded the holographic display to show training centers across human space where alien crews were learning to operate new systems. 3,000 years of peace gave the galaxy brilliant thinkers, Walker concluded. But it took humans to turn those thoughts into weapons that could save lives. As the meeting broke into smaller discussion groups, General Patel approached Walker privately. They're learning quickly, she said quietly. Walker nodded. They have to. Peace made them forget, but war is reminding them. And humans are good teachers. Across human space, innovation centers worked around the clock. What had begun as a desperate defense effort was becoming something more. A renaissance of cooperative development that was changing the course of the war. Luna Station hung in space above Earth, its curved, transparent dome offering visitors a breathtaking view of humanity's homeworld. Inside the hastily arranged council chamber, representatives from 27 different species gathered at humanity's invitation. The room hummed with nervous energy and the soft clicks, whistles, and rumbles of translated alien languages. Ambassador Michael Turner stood at the central podium. Unlike many human diplomats before the war, Turner had a military background, 15 years in Earth's Navy before switching to diplomatic service. He understood both war and peace, a combination increasingly valuable in these dangerous times. Thank you all for coming, Turner began, his calm voice cutting through the noise. 6 months into this conflict, it's time we discuss not just how to survive it, but how to end it. A wave of skeptical murmurs swept the room. An 8-limbed Mavolian representative rose from her cushioned platform, her translator relaying her chittering speech. End it. The ancient hatreds unleashed by the Council's collapse cannot be contained so easily. Some of these conflicts date back to before humans discovered fire. Turner nodded patiently. We understand your civilizations evolved under different circumstances than ours. You achieved peace earlier and maintained it longer. Humanity's history is different. We fought ourselves, our environment, and extinction itself before reaching the stars. He activated the main display, showing images from Earth's violent past. ancient battles, modern wars, and the struggles that had shaped human development. Our history is not pretty, Turner continued, but it taught us something valuable: how to end conflicts as well as how to fight them. The Mavolian chittered angrily. Are you suggesting barbarity is an advantage? That your species' violent tendencies make you superior? I'm suggesting adaptation is an advantage, Turner replied evenly. We're not proposing to fight your wars for you. We're offering to teach you to defend yourselves while we broker a new peace. He tapped his control pad, and the display changed to show a galactic map. Green lines marked human peacekeeping corridors. Blue zones indicated humanitarian safe areas. Yellow perimeters showed strategic defense positions already established by Earth's forces. The room fell silent as the aliens studied the map. The speed and effectiveness of humanity's response had been unprecedented. What had seemed like scattered efforts were revealed as parts of a comprehensive strategy. This is extensive, remarked a Tellurian diplomat, her blue skin reflecting the map's glow. You've been planning this since the beginning. Turner nodded. Of course. Humans understand that when peace is all you've known for 3,000 years, war seems like the end of everything. But when conflict is part of your history, you learn that all states, both war and peace, are temporary conditions to be managed. He zoomed in on specific sectors where human mediators were already working between warring factions. In these regions, we've established neutral zones where enemies can meet safely. In these systems, we've negotiated temporary resource-sharing agreements that have reduced fighting by 60%. A large rocky being, an ambassador from the silicon-based Lithos collective, raised a crystalline appendage. Why would humans expend such effort for others' wars? What do you gain? Turner's expression softened. Because isolated peace doesn't last. Earth learned this lesson painfully. If we only protected human worlds while letting the rest of the galaxy burn, eventually that fire would reach us too. He displayed new data showing trade routes reopening under human protection and refugee populations being resettled. We're not doing this from pure altruism, Ambassador. A stable galaxy benefits everyone, including Earth. But we're also doing it because it's right. As the diplomatic session continued into its second hour, Turner outlined humanity's proposed framework for conflict resolution, a system built not on the assumption that war could be permanently banished, but on the understanding that it must be managed, contained, and gradually transformed back into peace. The aliens began to see that humans weren't just good warriors. They were experienced peacemakers who understood that lasting peace came only through strength and wisdom combined. 8 months into the galactic war, the conflict had spread to 12 major sectors. Planets changed hands, ancient civilizations faced destruction, and millions became refugees. Yet one region remained notably stable: human space. It wasn't that Earth's worlds weren't valuable targets. Human planets contained rich resources, strategic positions, and advanced facilities. But early in the conflict, several aggressive powers had tested human defenses and regretted it. Now, most combatants carefully avoided human territory, focusing their aggression elsewhere. Commander Jack Wilson piloted his small scout ship through the debris field that had once been a thriving trading post. His mission was simple: search for survivors and gather intelligence. At 35, Wilson was older than most scout commanders, having spent years in Earth's exploration service before transferring to military operations. "I'm picking up a distress signal, sir," reported his sensor officer. "Weak but definite. Looks like a Tellurian signature." Wilson nodded. "Plot an approach course. Maintain defensive screens." 20 minutes later, they located the source: a damaged Tellurian vessel drifting among the wreckage. Its elegant blue hull was intact, showing no signs of weapons fire. "No battle damage," Wilson observed. "Scan for life signs." 14 Tellurians alive, sir. Life support is failing." Wilson ordered a rescue operation, and soon his team was boarding the alien vessel. Inside, they found the blue-skinned crew weak but alive, working desperately at malfunctioning control stations. The Talarian captain, a tall female named Ilara, greeted Wilson with obvious relief. "We thought we would die here," she said through her translator. "3 of our systems failed simultaneously, and we couldn't repair them fast enough." Wilson looked around the engine room, noticing something odd. "You weren't attacked?" Ilara's skin darkened with embarrassment. "No. We were on patrol for 23 days when our main power system failed. The backup system had issues we couldn't solve." Wilson examined the Talarian engine. It was advanced technology, theoretically superior to human equivalents. But as his engineers worked to restore power, he realized what had happened. Later, aboard his own ship with the rescued Talarians safely resting in the medical bay, Wilson sent his report to Admiral Walker. Their maintenance protocols were entirely theoretical, he explained via secure channel. Their engineers knew the procedures but had never performed actual emergency repairs under pressure. When systems started failing, they followed their manuals perfectly, but had no experience improvising when those procedures didn't work. Walker's weathered face showed understanding. 3,000 years of simulations versus real experience. "Exactly, sir. Their equipment is superior to ours in many ways, but they don't know how to keep it running when things go wrong. It's the same with their tactical systems. Perfect in theory, useless when the unexpected happens." This pattern appeared across the galaxy. Species with superior technology often found themselves helpless when that technology failed. Their specialized experts knew only their specific roles, with no ability to adapt when situations changed. Meanwhile, human society demonstrated remarkable flexibility. Earth's manufacturing centers worked around the clock, producing not just weapons but humanitarian supplies, medical equipment, and infrastructure components. Human colonies established training centers, teaching alien refugees practical skills their specialized societies had forgotten. "We're not stronger," Walker told Earth's Leadership Council that evening. "We're not smarter or more advanced, but we remember how to improvise, how to make do with limited resources. That's our real advantage." On worlds across human space, this adaptability showed itself in countless ways. Farming colonies increased food production to feed refugees. Industrial planets converted civilian factories to produce spare parts for Allied ships. Research stations developed simplified versions of advanced technology that could be more easily maintained in field conditions. It wasn't humanity's weapons that made them formidable. It was their refusal to accept failure, their ability to find solutions where others saw only problems, and their willingness to share these skills with their allies. As Walker reviewed Wilson's report, he couldn't help but see the irony. The galaxy had always viewed humans as the primitive newcomers. Now those primitives were teaching the ancient civilizations how to survive. 1 year after the collapse of the Galactic Council, ships from across the galaxy approached Earth. This time, they came not as refugees or desperate allies, but as representatives seeking a new beginning. The Grand Hall of Humanity in New Geneva had been built specifically for this day. Its circular design featured seats for every known spacefaring species, with environmental controls allowing comfortable conditions for all. The architecture incorporated elements from 100 alien cultures alongside human designs, a physical symbol of the new unity they hoped to create. President Elena Reyes stood at the central podium. At 63, she had lived through Earth's final regional conflicts before joining galactic society. Her face showed the confidence of someone who understood both war and peace. "Welcome to Earth," she began, her voice carrying to all corners of the hall. 1 year ago, we watched as 3,000 years of peace ended. Today, we gather to build something new, something stronger. The worst fighting had ended 3 months earlier. Some conflicts had burned out through exhaustion, others through careful human mediation. Many had ended when former enemies faced common threats that required cooperation. "We propose a new framework," Reyes continued, gesturing to the document displayed above her. "Not based on the fantasy of eternal peace, but on the realistic management of inevitable conflict." Murmurs spread through the assembly as representatives studied the proposal. The Interstellar Accord, as it was called, differed fundamentally from the old Council's approach. Where the Council had tried to eliminate war through rules and isolation, the Accord recognized conflict as a natural part of intelligent life. This agreement includes mandatory military readiness for all signatories, Rise explained, not because we want war, but because being prepared for it makes it less likely to occur. She outlined the core principles: dispute resolution mechanisms with actual enforcement powers, regular joint exercises between different species forces, shared technology development, and rapid response teams that could contain conflicts before they spread. We also established the right of neutral intervention, she added. When disputes arise between worlds, unaffected powers can step in to protect civilians and critical resources without taking sides. The debate lasted for hours as representatives questioned, challenged, and refined the proposal. Unlike the old Council's formal procedures, this discussion was direct and practical. When disagreements arose, they were addressed immediately rather than buried under diplomatic language. As the day ended, representatives came forward one by one to sign the new accord. Earth was neither first nor last, simply one signatory among many. After the ceremony, Admiral Walker stood on a balcony overlooking the hall. The Draxian Prime, leader of the insectoid empire that had started the war, approached him. Their species had been among the most aggressive fighters, yet now they had signed the accord alongside their former enemies. You were never worried, the Draxian observed, compound eyes studying the human's face, even when the fighting was at its worst. Walker shook his head slightly. Worried? No. Concerned, prepared, ready, but not worried. Humanity learned long ago that peace isn't the natural state of intelligent life. Peace is something you build and maintain through strength and vigilance. A philosophy our ancestors knew before 3 millennia of peace made us forget. The Draxian acknowledged. Perhaps humans arrived in the galactic community at exactly the right moment. Together, they watched the main display showing coordination efforts across formerly contested zones. Human and alien personnel worked side by side, rebuilding what war had destroyed. We didn't come to fight your wars, Walker said thoughtfully. We came to remind you how to survive them, and then how to build a stronger peace afterward. The Draxian's mandibles clicked in what humans now recognize as thoughtful agreement. And for that reminder, the galaxy owes humanity a debt. Walker smiled slightly. No debts. Just remember the lesson. Peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the strength to face it together when it comes. As night fell over Earth, the new interstellar accord took its first steps. Not a perfect peace, but something more valuable. A resilient one, built on the understanding that preparing for the worst was the best way to achieve the best. The galaxy had changed forever, and humanity had helped it change for the better.